What is up, summoners, and welcome to the channel. Today it is time. New York Comic Con is fastly coming upon us here now. It's going to be tomorrow. It's hard to believe. Seems like time has flown. And that means that the contest for Morningstar at the Kabam booth for MCOC is going to start tomorrow. And while I am not going to be there myself, I would have loved to have been. I did want to take the opportunity, though, to help put together a video kind of giving just a rough guideline, maybe a few tips on which characters to use, things to watch out for those of you that are going. And, you know, I don't know, there's two very different aspects of this. You could go and just have a little bit of fun messing around with it, or you could go and be very competitive and try to, you know, qualify each day, try to earn the top spot, then come back again on Saturday for the overall top winner. A lot of bragging rights, a lot of really cool gifts being given out. So whatever you're going to do there, hopefully this video will be able to help you out. And I realize we don't have like exact specifics as far as the buffs that Morningstar is going to have or any unique nodes that will be attached to her. But my guess is, especially after talking in the live stream last night from people that went last year, I'm assuming she probably will just have an increase to her health, increase to her attack power, something very generic that just anybody could come in, pick up, and play. But at the same time, that also means that your skill is going to have to be kind of top-notch, and you want to make sure that you pair that with the right character to be able to take the boss down quickly to qualify if you're going to go for the competitive aspect. Now, there are three things here, obviously, that will play into whether or not you qualify. Obviously, you have to successfully beat the boss. That should go without saying. The amount of time that you spend to beat the boss. So basically what that means is the quicker that you can take them down, the more damage output that you're pouring into them, that's going to be more of a benefit to you. And then obviously the last part here I was a little bit confused by at first. I had originally read this, I guess, just too quickly and assumed that the more health that you end the fight with, the more points you will be rewarded. But that is not actually what's going on here at all. It's actually the number of hits that you receive. So one thing that is unique to Morningstar, which if I switch over here real quick, let me jump over to, there it is, okay. One thing unique to her is that if she starts with one soul charge, she actually has a chance, there's a 50% chance when you attack her, that she is going to place a bleed on you. There it is right there. With one soul charge, when struck with a physical contact, Morningstar has a 50% chance to cause her opponent to bleed. Originally, that was something that I was thinking about in terms of, well, you're going to have a bleed immune character or somebody who can regen, because if you're taking that bleed passively, you're going to be losing points, but in fact, that is not correct at all. You can almost be killed by that passive bleed, but if you don't take a single hit in the fight, you know, you're not going to be deducted for almost having no health. So, having said all of that, there's one other thing that I want to point out here. Lack of blood provides full immunity to bleed effects. So when you're talking about high DPS characters, because she cannot bleed, that is going to exclude Gwenpool, that is going to exclude Archangel, and also X-23. And if there are any other high bleed characters I'm thinking of, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's going to exclude all three of them because of that. Now, as far as the soul captures go, if I'm a betting man, I would say it's probably going to be one soul charge. But just be aware, if you start the fight and you see 2 or 3, just know she'll be unstoppable for 2.5 seconds when she triggers the S1, when she has 2 soul charges, and then with 3 soul charges, she has an unblockable S2, which that is a beam, excuse me, a bleam. It is a beam, it's a projectile, and because you have no masteries, you're not going to be able to work around that unless you have somebody like Starkey Spider-Man who can passively evade that, or Daredevil. But we'll talk about that all in a second. I would bank on the fact, though, it's going to be one soul charge causing bleeds. So let me jump over into the champions list here, and I'm going to walk through each individual class. Hopefully pick out a couple of characters that you can use, which I realize probably one of the best things to do is just play a character that has high damage output that you are comfortable with. Using a character that somebody else suggests that you're just not familiar with, as far as the animations go, probably is not going to help you in the long run. When it comes to this, the science class, obviously there is a class advantage there over Morningstar being a mystic. I think a lot of people will probably be using Hulk. There's a couple of really good options here to use Hulk, or reasons I should say. Obviously class advantage boosts up already very high base attack power. But the other thing that pairs with this is his Hulk Rage, his signature ability. If she does have one soul charge and she is placing a bleed on you, that actually will benefit Hulk. Taking that bleed damage is going to then increase the amount of overall damage output that he is doing, which is going to end the fight quicker. So those all kind of combine, I think, to make a really good option here. The other thing that shouldn't be overlooked is special attacks have an 85% chance to stun. So there is a good opportunity here to chain a bunch of S1s together and really finish her off when she's below, you know, like 30, 25% health, something like that. Chaining a bunch of those S1s together. And remember, you will be able to put together a 5-man team. At least you were last year. I was assuming it's probably going to carry over this year as well. So you also could implement the Black Widow and Hulk synergy for an additional chance to stun there if the base 85% chance doesn't trigger that. The other thing I would probably do is Hulk. I would suggest probably putting together a power gain team. The reason for that is if you do get the stun, you'll be able to more quickly get back to another S1 and chain those together. So honestly, I think Hulk might be one of the very best options because of all those things combined. The other option I thought about here in the science class, and remember, it doesn't really matter how much damage you're taking. This one may seem a little out of left field, but I think Electro actually might not be too bad of an option. Base damage is okay, but it has a very high crit rate. He's got a lot of really good synergies. You can see a couple of them down here that increase his attack power. Spider-Man, Venom, there's a bunch of other synergies there that can increase all of that. And one of the big things that I like about him is once you do finally get to an S2, if that thing crits, and I know it's an if, but he has a very high crit chance, that hits really hard, plus class advantage. You might actually wipe her out as soon as you get to an S2 if that thing can crit. So I actually think he might not be a bad option as well. Remember, it doesn't make any difference if you are bleeding. That damage you're taking it doesn't count against you. It's only when you are getting hit. Was there any other? I mean, Spider-Man. I guess you could use Spider-Man. Good base attack, armor break. However, he evades at some of the strangest times, which kind of messes up some of your timing. So I kind of left him off the list. There aren't really a lot of really high damage output characters in the science class. I think Electro and Hulk are probably your two best options there. Now, moving over into the skill class, we'll cover this one very briefly. I actually don't recommend using anybody from the skill class. If you look through here, there just aren't... I mean, Gwenpool is the one option that you would think of as far as high DPS, but as I mentioned before, Morningstar is bleed immune, so that totally negates the reason for using Gwenpool. Can't use Black Panther, can't use Hawkeye. Crossbones might be the one that you would take a look at, but again, I think he has good damage output, but I wouldn't say that it's like great. He doesn't really have that one just kind of blow away like S2. I know the S2 has a chance to hit hard with Incinerates, but you're kind of banking and hoping on the fact that you've got a bunch of Furies built up together. I think there's just too many ifs there and timing of all that I would just totally skip over the skill class. The Mutant class, again, you're not going to be able to use X-23 or Archangel because of the bleed immunity. I think that a good option here that people might overlook is Storm for a very similar reason as I like Electro. She's got really strong synergies in the Mutant class that will boost up her critical rate, her special attack power, and that's the big thing is the S2 for Storm is very similar to Electro's. It has a chance to hit really hard, and more often than not it does. So if you can use the masteries of the Mutant class to your advantage to boost up her base attack power and basically wait till you get to that S2. If you play aggressively, you might only have to evade 1 or 2 S1s, which should be fairly easy to do. Drop that S2 and you will probably blow up what is left of her health. The other character in this class that I originally thought was going to be a really good option because of his bleed immunity is ICEMAN. However, that's not such a big deal now that I realize that it's not based upon, you know, ending the fight with a bunch of health, but actually hits taken. Having said that, though, still good base damage. Starts the fight with a cold snap on the enemy, doing additional damage as well. When it comes to the Mutant class, I think Storm and ICEMAN are probably your best options. I was thinking about maybe Cyclops. Cyclops, especially with all of the mutant synergies, his S2 and S1 probably would both hit pretty hard. But honestly, for my money, if I'm going to use a mutant, I probably would use Storm and then follow that up with an ICEMAN and Cyclops. Hopefully, there will be many opportunities for you to see other people in line using a lot of other characters to help kind of mold and shape what decisions you want to make each time you go up there to play. One other option that I thought of, just this might be kind of crazy, but Gambit with his infinite stun might be viable. I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that it's probably not going to be, just because you don't have your masteries, so you don't have that extra half-second stun, which probably would turn that up on its head. I don't know. Somebody, I guess, should test that out without masteries to see if that's even possible. Just throwing that one out there. The Cosmic class, I don't love the Cosmic class because there is class disadvantage. The other thing that I don't like is because you don't have parry available to you, it's going to be more difficult to fire off Hyperion's heavy attack, which I really feel he relies on that quite a bit. Those Furies that he builds up play a significant role in his damage output with his S1, which if there was parry, if you had parry and you could heavy attack like 1 or 2 times quickly into the fight, have your S1 available with that Incinerate, I think he'd be an excellent option. But because you don't have that available to you in parry, it's going to be more difficult to try to line up your heavy attack. I think it's just going to waste unnecessary time that you could use with other characters, namely Thor. If you want to use a Cosmic character, I think Thor is probably a pretty good option. Where is my 4? There he is. My 4-star Thor is not awakened. Obviously, he will be awakened for the roster that you're going to use. Even though you don't have parry, you will still be able to have a well-timed block, have the armor breaks. You'll have the stun chance with the S1. Furies that he builds up during normal attack. So I think of the Cosmics, even Angela I'm not a big fan of because she does have the regen that will pop in if she's taking damage, which Morningstar is going to reflect basically that heal. Going to copy that for herself, which is going to give her regen, which is going to make the fight even longer. So for my money, probably would leave Hyperion and Angela, and I guess Thor. Really, stay away from the Cosmic class. Class disadvantage is not going to help you out at all, but if you're dead set on a Cosmic, I think probably Thor is your best option. As far as the tech class goes, there's a couple here that I like. Obviously, Stark Spider-Man, wherever he is at right here, I think might be one of the very best options that you can take in. Again, it doesn't matter if you're taking bleed damage. You're going to finish that fight well before that bleed is going to kill you. Wouldn't even necessarily worry about trying to build up the poise charges in and of themselves. I think through normal gameplay, you're going to build up several of those. By the time you get to an S2, my guess is she will probably be very close to dead. The other thing I really like about him, though, is his passive ability to evade specials, which if for some reason you do have a situation where they do give her 3 soul charges at the beginning and that S2 is unblockable, he'd be a great option to get around that, paired with really high damage output as well. Obviously, you can't talk damage without talking Star-Lord. Star-Lord, I think could be very viable. I think you're going to have a large amount of skill. Because if you get hit even once, that is going to completely ruin your run. So if you are highly confident in your abilities to intercept, I think Star-Lord's a good option. However, you are taking a little bit of a risk. One hit is going to totally ruin the entire run. OG Vision is another one that I like. The reason for that, I know his damage output may seem a little bit low. Again, masteries, excuse me, not masteries, I keep saying that, synergies. Should help boost up that a little bit. I honestly would probably put together a crit team for OG Vision, but the nice thing about him is you start with a bar of power, meaning you're completely in control, and if you have mastered kind of locking them in the corner, dash back, catch the intercept, power drain, something very similar to what you do with the Collector to keep him from getting to his S1, I think he could be a very viable option as well. That kind of leads me here into the Mystic class. Magic has got the exact same thing going on, although it's going to take a little bit more time to build up with Magic. In her synergy build, as opposed to OG Vision, I probably would focus on a power gain team if you want to use Magic. That way she can more quickly get to her S2. The one thing I do like about Magic is that the limbo damage is passive. While she may be bleed immune in Morningstar, there's still the limbo damage that's going to be ticking away. Once you do finally get to that S2 and throw that thing down, she'll be locked in the corner for you to finish off. I like Magic. I have a lot of experience with her. Her damage output is good in the hands of a skilled player. So I've got her down in the Mystic class. And then these other two, well, let me start with Scarlet Witch. So Scarlet Witch, I think, is kind of a toss-up. It very much depends upon what Veil of Fortune buffs you get. If you're very lucky, and let's say you get maybe a stun or two, you build up a couple of Furies, you've got a critical damage buff, there's a good opportunity there if her S2 crits to just totally blow up the whole fight. Like, I could imagine a scenario, if you get lucky, having a stun and a power lock, just pouring in tons of damage, quickly getting to your S2 without ever having to bait out a special because of power lock, firing that thing off. If you get a little bit lucky, like I said, with the Fury buffs, the critical damage buffs, that thing can hit for easily 20k plus. I think I would probably run a crit team with Scarlet Witch, just so that you have more options for Veil of Fortune to proc. And then finally, my last option here is somebody that I just picked up. Where's he? Yeah, there he is right there. This one is kind of an outlier, but I was just thinking, you know, somebody who's got good base damage, that you don't have to time up anything, don't have to hold down anything. You just go in and focus on your skill, focus on your intercepting, and Iron Fist kind of came to mind. I think that you could probably build... I wouldn't necessarily focus on a crit team. He actually has a fairly high crit rating, as you can see there at 28.8%. Plus, he also has precision, 8% chance for it to boost his critical rating with all attacks, which that you'll find is up for quite a bit of the fight. So I wouldn't waste your synergies on additional crit. If anything, I would focus on crit damage rating, or possibly putting together a couple of extra attack power boosts through your synergies. I think you might actually be a pretty good option there. Be very interested to see if anybody places in the top 3 using an Iron Fist. And really, the rest of it just comes down to your overall skill. I don't really see Morningstar as being that difficult of a character to play. You can easily work around her S1, that is a physical attack with her weapon. Focus on baiting that out. Try not to get to the S2 if it's unblockable. However, if you do push her to the S2, you're just going to have to stand there and eat that damage, unless you're running like Starkey Spider-Man or OG Daredevil, which I wouldn't recommend. But really, I think one of your best things that you can do is kind of go in with a game plan of maybe a top, maybe 2 or 3 characters that you want to play with. Keep an eye on the board for what everybody else is doing, and kind of adjust your gameplay as you go. Now, do remember, and I will point this out before we end the video. Let me find it here real quickly. Right here, at the end of each day, the top 3 players must come back to the MCOC booth. You will encounter a different boss to beat for this, so be prepared for after your strategy, or to alter your strategy. I would assume that this is probably going to be Mephisto, would be my guess. And probably a lot of the information that I just gave to you will also apply to Mephisto, because he is bleed immune as well. The one thing you got to watch with him is his fire aura, but you just evade back, stay away while that fire aura is up. Should be a lot of fun. Very much I'm looking forward to seeing the results. Hopefully they live stream some of that, or get good video clips so we can watch kind of the top qualifiers there. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any suggestions for the community to add to this video, would love to hear them. As always, follow me on Twitter. The link's in the description. Join my new Discord server. This would be a great place to talk about this at. The link is down in the description as well. All right, guys, best of luck to all of you heading over to New York Comic Con. Whether or not you are competing in the contest, I hope everybody has a great time. Say hello to all the YouTube content creators there. Hopefully, I'll be able to make it next year. Until I see you all in the next video, have a great day.